welcome to the Muse Virtual Product Showcase. Today's showcase is Single Sign-On and Virtual Roaming Enhanced Physician Productivity and Satisfaction at Willamette Valley Medical Center. Before we get started today, I have a few announcements that I'd like to make just so that things flow smoothly and everyone gets the best experience possible today. First of all, we are going to hold all questions until the end. Now, you can send questions throughout the webinar, but our Q&A dedicated time will actually be at the end of the webinar today. So you're all muted. You're in the listen-only mode. When you are ready to send your questions, again, you can send them all through the webinar. Simply find your question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. It's probably on the right-hand side of your screen. Type your question and press send, and then they will be read in the order that they're received at the end of the webinar. If you'd rather vocally ask a question or make a comment, you can certainly do that as well. You will just click the yellow hand icon in the top left corner of your GoToWebinar control panel, and that hand button will indicate to me that you would like to be unmuted, and at that time I'll unmute you so that you can ask your question or make your comment vocally. Again, we will do this all at the end of the webinar. Now, you have two options today for your audio. You can log in with a phone or you can log in with your computer's audio. If your audio is working well and everything is sounding great, I would recommend you just stay in the mode that you're in. However, if it's not quite crisp enough for you, or if you would like to ask a question and you don't have a microphone, you can switch to your phone. You can do this by expanding the audio button, which is, again, it's on the GoToWebinar control panel. And then you can see where you can toggle back and forth between the computer audio or the phone call radio button there. So that covers things for our audio today. A few more little announcements and then we'll move on. Muse International does not endorse any products or services that will be shown today. It's for your education. Again, this is our new virtual product showcase format, which we're pleased to offer you today. Now, our presenters today are from Forward Advantage and Diane Farrows from Willamette Valley Medical Center, and I'm going to turn it over to our presenters from Forward Advantage now. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it. And good day, everybody, and welcome to the Muse webinar on single sign-on and Meditech roaming. Today we'll be speaking about how single sign-on can enhance the clinician's productivity and their satisfaction. Today we have with us Diane Farrow from Willamette Valley Medical Center. Diane's been with Willamette Valley Medical Center for 35 years and is the IT director. Diane has implemented many applications at Willamette Valley. Diane has been instrumental part of deciding on a single sign-on solution and also was instrumental in the implementation of a single sign-on solution. Also with us today is Lee Howard of Forward Advantage. Lee Howard is the Vice President of Client Services and has over 20 years of healthcare experience and has implemented OneSign in over 100 Meditech hospitals, both in the U.S. and Canada. Welcome, Lee.
Thanks, Oscar.
Thank you. I'm Oscar Beninati, and I'm Director of Sales here for Forward Advantage, and will be your moderator. I also have 20 years of healthcare experience and have worked at Meditech in the early 2000s. I worked with Diane and the folks at Willamette Valley during their search process as well as during their implementation process. Today's agenda will cover the following. Lee Howard will discuss key challenges of hospitals looking for a single sign-on solution, the focus on the patient, options on authenticating with SSO, and streamlining the workflow for your clinicians. I will be moderating question and answer sessions with Diane Farrow and covering the benefits of single sign-on, implementation of a single sign-on solution, and how virtual desktops can improve the workflow. Diane will also be discussing some tips and tricks for a successful implementation. And at the end, we'll have time for answers from some of your questions as well. I'm now going to hand this to Lee Howard to start us off with key challenges. Lee?
Thanks, Oscar, and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Some of the things that I wanted to cover in advance of the discussion with Diane was what customers are telling us as we're either in a sales process or in the middle of an implementation process. And as everybody on the phone understands today, there are a lot of challenges in healthcare IT, which makes it exciting and makes it a very fast-paced time. However, we all know that our resources are limited on the IT staff side, as well as choosing the right product or the right solution to implement. Technology is moving fast, and the workforce is becoming mobile. They're looking for things to become delivered to them quickly and easily, much like their consumer experience is today. I'm going to go ahead and bet that everybody sitting on this webinar today probably has in their hand or right next to them on their desk their iPhone or Android device, and we're becoming very used to that type of consumerism within technology. That also goes for the care providers. Their expectations of ease of use and satisfaction are growing every day, and I know in IT we all feel that. So it's important that we help them deliver care, focus on the patient, and do that in a streamlined way that, again, enhances their ability to go to the job that they really are meant to do, which is care for patients. As you see on the slide here, what I've talked about covers many elements. Resources, limitations, IT project lists, BYOD, those are just some of those topics. One of the key that Diane will speak about today is communication and collaboration. Communication with the care team about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're hoping to streamline their workflow. And again, meeting up with their high expectations for that. Technology is not going to slow down. I don't anticipate that to happen in my lifetime, and we just ought to understand that and use that as a means to help our caregivers. So again, we in the IT community, we think about technology, we think about solutions that we can provide. But if we look back at the business that we are all in, the healthcare business and the hospital business specifically, we're about treating patients. So we shouldn't lose sight of that and focus on the patient, put the patient in the center of everything we do, and everything that's around it is how can we help better the experience of the patient, provide better care for the patient, and do that in an efficient and streamlined manner. As many of you have experienced throughout your life, whether it be last week, last month, or last year, we are the patient too. I was a patient less than a month ago, and it's important that they documented in the chart everything I told them. They validated my identity, who I was, because they were focused on me, the patient. And that goes for whether it's my wife, whether it's my daughter, or your daughters and sons out there. So focusing on the patient. And how we do that in IT is we can focus on the patient by delivering clinical productivity. We're talking today about single sign-on and advanced authentication, and Diane's going to speak about how the efficiencies that they gained were beneficial for nurses, physicians, physical therapists, rehab therapists, again, giving them ease of access to a system to take that barrier out of the play and allow them to provide care for the patient. So we talk about clinical productivity, and that's really the focus of today. But some other elements that impact our days are regulatory requirements, electronic prescribing of controlled substance, and our friends at NIST and the DEA have put a two-factor authentication NFR or IFR out there, interim final ruling. It's important to know that there's a change in the landscape when it comes to reimbursement. All of you are experiencing these changes, and we need to focus back on the patient from an IT perspective to provide tools and solutions that help us get back to care. So specific today, one of those items that we're going to talk about is flexibility and different authentication options. Again, balancing the security that we need with convenience that the users are looking for. You see that as a primary authentication method, and you'll hear that referred in the industry through acronyms as tap in, tap out, tap and go, different things like that. Diane, in her solution at Willamette Valley, is using a tap methodology where they're allowing their users to tap in and provide their password the first time, and then for the next 5 hours, all the user has to do is tap their employee badge. Again, trying to make it more convenient and also being secure so that we have the right caregiver documenting for the right patient. Throughout our customer base, we have many customers that are using that workflow experience, again, to try to provide clinical productivity, but also keep security in check so that we know that we have the right caregiver documenting in the EMR. There are other authentication options that do with inside of technologies today. There is a secondary re-authentication. You all know that in the Meditech market space as the Meditech eSign event. And that can be a simple PIN as you are using today. It can also be expanded to be that badge, a fingerprint, or other options. Specifically in the state of Ohio, they actually have a regulatory requirement that requires them to do a strong authentication for every order, medication administration, and medication reconciliation, so the BMV workflows as well. I mentioned earlier authentication comes into play with EPCS, and then let's not forget about the remote access employee, whether it be a physician charting at home or documenting, or it be a remote person that's doing transcribing, allowing some type of two-factor authentication or flexible authentication so that we know we have the right person being connected and working in the chart. Knowing that we have the right person is important because documenting from the right person on the right patient, getting back to the patient. So I mentioned that we have many customers doing this, and as Oscar led in, I've actually worked on about 100 one-sign implementations. We have more than that, but haven't worked on all of them. But it's important to know that we're trying to balance the security and convenience to streamline that workflow for the caregivers. Who are the caregivers? They take place in many different settings. The patient room inside the hospital is the most common. The nurse in her workflow or his workflow. The physician when he comes in to either visit with the patient or do a consultative with another physician. But that also takes place in the nursing station, the pharmacy, in the radiology department. And what you see on the screen here is a depiction of that little red icon or the badge. The badge as an authentication method is becoming very commonplace because it's something that's identity proof when we provide it to the user, and allows them to be convenient as well as secure. Last on this slide, I did want to mention that caregiver community expands beyond the nurse and the physician. Phlebotomists play a role, dietary plays a role, the therapies, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and rehab therapy in certain care settings play a role. And again, all of those care teams are put together, and the goal of the care team is to provide great care for those patients. So again, that authentication method to get in and make it simple for the user to authenticate so that they can take that time that they would have spent focused on logging in and logging out and focus that time back on the patient. So before we get to our Q&A with Diane, a couple other benefits that we do see out in the market space, and Diane will speak to a component of this, is the ability of the roaming aspect, and in Diane's case, specifically roaming of Meditech. We have customers that are doing virtual desktops, part of desktop virtualization, and that allows the entire desktop to roam with the user from device to device, again, trying to make it more streamlined and more convenient. Most of us on the phone today, we sit down at our desk, we log in, and we stay sitting at our desk. The caregivers are not that way. They don't sit at one desk. They are very mobile because they're going to the bedside, they're going to the meds room, they're going from patient to patient to provide that patient care. That's the business that we are in healthcare, the business of providing care for patients. So while virtual desktops allow for that roaming, in Diane's environment, she's actually roaming the Meditech application, which is being hosted by her parent company, Capella Health. That one application is roaming, and that is where a majority of the work that the caregivers are doing. They are in Meditech, they're charting in PCS, the physicians are in order management, they're doing their work in Meditech, and so that application is roaming with them from desktop to desktop, whether it be in the patient room, the nursing station, or in the cart. So again, the benefits of virtualization you'll hear today really being talked about the Meditech roaming experience. Multiple customers are doing this throughout our environment, and we'll talk specifically about Diane and her environment at Willamette Valley, and we're excited to have her talk to us today. How we're going to do this today is Oscar is going to do some Q&A with Diane so we can get some elements of her project out there for you. And again, as Oscar mentioned in the beginning, we'll hold Q&A and questions at the end. for all of you that have questions about Diane's experience and what that workflow looks like before and after. So without more talking from me, I'm going to turn it over to Oscar and welcome our guest, Diane. Oscar?
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. And now I'd like to welcome Diane Farrow as our key presenter. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you.
Diane, before we get started with the question and answers, can you tell us a little bit about Willamette Valley Medical Center?
Yes. Willamette Valley Medical Center is located in beautiful McMinnville, Oregon, in the heart of wine country. The community is located an hour from the beach and about an hour and a half from the mountains, where people are able to enjoy surfing, kite flying, fishing, skiing, backpacking, and many more outdoor activities. Our new hospital was completed in 1996, so it's not very new anymore, and is an 88-bed facility. We have 670 workstations in the facility with 600 employees. We have close to 90 patients come through our ED daily. We also have a very busy surgery department as well as our med-surg floor. So time is very valuable to our clinicians.
Thanks for that, Diane. I really appreciate that. So let's get started with some questions, Diane. Let's go with the first one. What challenges did Willamette Valley Medical Center have prior to considering a single sign-on solution?
Well, we went live with Meditech 6 in August of 2012. We had placed workstations in every patient room as well as at the nurse stations. This meant that the clinicians had to log in and out of each patient room before going into the next room or to their workstation. They found that they were logging in over 30 times a day, and the logon process was very cumbersome, which took time away from patient care. We also have an application where our users can access such information as benefits, look at their pay stub, etc. The password for this application was also had very stringent requirements, and users had a hard time remembering their password. Our goal was to increase the clinician satisfaction as well as patient satisfaction. We wanted to eliminate the number of times the user needed to log into Meditech alone. We knew we could accomplish this goal.
And what led you to decide on a single sign-on solution?
We felt that if the users didn't need to log in as many times, that they would be able to spend more time with their patients.
Excellent. During your evaluation, did you evaluate other solutions before deciding on the Imprivata one-sign solution delivered by Forward Advantage?
I looked on the internet for solutions and then came across Imprivata, and we had a demo, and our CIO at corporate and myself felt that Forward Advantage could provide this solution, and they were backed by strong service, Forward Advantage's expertise with Meditech, so we didn't feel we needed to go through a big selection process.
Great, thanks for that. And during the process, what was the project scope and the rollout strategy for single sign-on? Was it one department, multiple departments? Did you have initial count of users?
We initially started with 325 licenses, and we wanted to start with our med-surg department first. So we had Jim from Forward Advantage come on site and introduce the solution to a group of super user champions. We set up our IT classroom with OneSign so users could come and enroll their badges as time permitted them. We also installed OneSign on at least one workstation in each of the nursing pods so users could enroll and use the system and report any issues to IT. We made flyers promoting this solution, sought-after solution. We put articles in our biweekly employee newsletter. Then we started the implementation the first week of November 2015, and the deployment report I ran on November 15th, 2015 showed that we had 221 active users, 166 active workstations. The average logon per user was 37, showing that they did in fact log on to Meditech many times a shift. We started the project with the 325 licenses. We now have 497 licenses and many badge readers. We have started installing in our owned clinics as well as other non-clinical areas of the hospital.
Excellent. And Diane, how was the implementation process? Now that you've been live for a while, is there anything you would have done differently?
We have an IT staff of 5, including myself. During this process, I kept one staff member in the department to answer the help desk calls and another staff member on desk side support so our customers would still have their immediate IT needs met. The remaining 3 of us went from nursing pod to nursing pod installing OneSign. It takes about 35 to 40 minutes per workstation to install. However, we could be installing on a couple of machines at a time due to the period of inactivity while the program installs. The nursing staff were very helpful in contacting us whenever they had a patient room open so that we could install in the rooms, and installs ran fairly smoothly. There are 3 types of installation. One of us was in charge of installing the kiosk version, one the type 1 version, and another the type 1A, where up to 4 users can at the same time using fast user switching. We had detailed documentation for each of the 3 workstation types so we didn't miss something and have to backtrack.
Excellent. And now that you've been live, how's the adoption been of the single sign-on solution at Willamette Valley?
And I actually spoke to a nurse this morning, and I think there would be a mutiny. A lot of nurses have said they just quit. So they've gotten very used to it. It has saved them a lot of time. This is one project where IT, they actually say thank you instead of the usual grumblings that can occur with normal technology changes. I have users ask daily, when are we on the schedule to get OneSign? In fact, I was named Leader of the Year this year, and I'm sure the implementation was at least part of the reason.
That's great, Diane. Congratulations on that. Can you speak to us a little bit about what specific results Willamette Valley has been able to achieve since implementing a single sign-on solution? For instance, has it improved your efficiencies? Are you getting reduced calls for having password resets? Is the roaming capability been helpful for your clinicians? That type of stuff?
Yeah, it's improved efficiencies. They're telling us that each clinician in our facility is saving 30 to 45 minutes a day per shift per clinician. So that's a tremendous amount of time that they are actually able then to spend with their patient on patient care, which has been a tremendous asset to our facility. We had Jim from Forward Advantage. He was able to profile 49 applications for us. So that's 49 applications that the end user has access to with their badge. Jim was also able to create the Meditech profile such that when a nurse or physician tapped their badge at a kiosk type workstation, it automatically launches Meditech and takes them to their first menu. This was a big crowd pleaser, as prior to OneSign, they would log in, then they had to select Test or Live, then click Sign On, then click the module they wanted to go to. Now they tap their badge, wait 10 seconds for Meditech to log them in, and click one time to get to the module they want to access.
That's great, Diane. And one last question, Diane. What would you recommend to other organizations considering a single sign-on solution?
OneSign has been a great solution. There is a learning curve as with any new process. However, the benefits far exceeded our original expectations. Just knowing that our physicians and nurses are able to spend more time with their patients has been a huge benefit, and our patients feel like they have the full attention of the clinician.
Great. Thank you, Diane. That was great information, and we all look forward to your continued success there at Willamette Valley. And now, what I'd like to do is bring Lee Howard back to discuss how Forward Advantage can help your hospitals with your next IT project. Lee?
Thanks, Oscar. And so there's some things that I'll pull out from tidbits of Diane's project. She mentioned the communication, and her team did a really great job with that, not only collaborating as an IT team, but when they collaborated as an IT team, that actually kind of permeated out in the organization, and the nursing leaders, as well as just the staff nurses, saw that collaboration and communication about what was coming, and they collaborated back and worked together to, again, provide that enhanced workflow. So Forward Advantage, how we can help you with that. first and foremost, thank you to Diane for talking about her experience today. But it's really based on your organization's needs, what your project is, what your project scope is, what you're looking to do, and what you'd like to have us do with you. We can do everything from just advise and consult on whether you have a solution that's in place today and it's not being as successful as you'd like it to be, to implementing a specific single sign-on, as Diane mentioned, the one-sign solution, provide some advice on the Meditech application delivered through Citrix and roaming, or we can provide architecture, design, and actually build of a virtual desktop or virtual environments as well. So it really depends upon the customer's need, the customer's business goals and project goals, and what they want us to help them with. So why we at Forward Advantage feel compelled to talk about this really is we do have exposure to different environments. Diane mentioned Jim's name on the team, and he's one of a larger team. As the team collaborates here at Forward Advantage, we also implement with different customers. Diane at Willamette Valley is one customer implementation, but Jim and the team members have done others. And taking that experience from one facility to another is very important because it allows us to communicate things that we've learned, tips and tricks that we learned with Diane, tips and tricks that we learned at St. Joseph's, or different organizations on how to make that efficiency as good as we possibly can. So again, exposure to different implementations help us. We also collaborate as a team to share some of Diane's team huddles. We've actually talked about trying to encourage customers to do those same type of team huddles inside of their environments. We do have Meditech expertise. We've been implementing in Meditech since the late 1990s, since 1995, and understand that there's variances between the Meditech 6X environment that Diane has today versus a Meditech Magic environment. A couple of those to point out, as Diane's well aware, is we make sure that we deal with not just the csmagic.exe, which is the NPR version, but also the magic.exe child application that gets spun up off the Citrix server or the desktop as another application that's really for their MAT-based code. So understanding those components about Meditech is important. Also in the Magic environments, understanding how the terminal emulators and how you can configure those in the terminal dictionaries. So some of that Meditech expertise is important to know. We can deliver point-to-point solutions. We can deliver a specific point solution. In Diane's case, we delivered one single sign-on and authentication with the badge, and we helped collaborate with the Citrix team out of Capella Health about how to configure Citrix in a way that we can automate that workflow. All of our delivery engineers are certified. We're certified with the Imprivata one-sign solution, Imprivata Confirm ID, Imprivata Cortex, as well as Microsoft certified engineers, and we have certifications with VMware as well as Citrix. So those are a couple things about why you should think about Forward Advantage. But again, ask lots of questions as to what other customers are doing, because we do need to collaborate in healthcare to find the right balance of solutions. Again, security, convenience to help enable productivity for care of patients. I'm going to turn it back over to Oscar for a second to talk about Forward Advantage overall solutions, and then we'll take Q&A from the audience.
Great. Thanks again, Lee and Diane, that information. Well, everybody, as you can see from this slide, Forward Advantage offers many solutions to help hospitals achieve their goals, single sign-on just being one of them. We specialize in the Meditech market, and many of our solutions were designed specifically to help solve challenges that Meditech hospitals have today. We encourage you to reach out to us if you have questions on any of the above products. For instance, information exchange, secure messaging, virtualization solutions, identity and access management, not just single sign-on, but patient identification as well. And we also do data preservation and migration. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to give you additional information on any one of these solutions. So thank you again all for attending. Now we'll get to some Q&A. Alicia, do you want to bring up some of the questions from the audience?
Sure, thank you so much. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, it is now time for Q&A, so you can type your questions into the question box and press send, and we will read those in the order that they're received. Or if you would rather vocally ask your question or make your comment, you can raise your hand by clicking the yellow hand button in the top left corner of your GoToWebinar control panel, and I will unmute you at that time so you can vocally ask your question. All right, so our first question, did you say there is a 10-second delay to log into Meditech after tapping the badge?
Yes. With Meditech, with the Citrix environment that we are in, Meditech does have a 10-second delay to log the user in. That was before OneSign. It took the same amount of time. So they didn't lose anything by having OneSign.
Okay.
And so, Diane, this is Lee. I'll elaborate on that. So when the user actually, they're starting a published application of Meditech across the wide area network being delivered from Capella's data center in Tennessee. And that's what's taking the 10 seconds to draw the application to that local desktop.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that one. So next question. You mentioned that Meditech login takes the user to the first menu. Is that something that's set in Meditech, or is that an Imprivata setting?
That was something that Jim worked with us and with Meditech, with our parent company, to work out so that it's actually within the Imprivata forwarded OneSign application. Sorry.
And this is Lee. I'll clarify a little. So what we did is we actually, for the certain groups of users that we knew we were going to take straight to live, we actually automatically prompted the default HCIS for live and took them in there to through the application profile process. So we segregate out test and live, and there is a way to also control some of those elements within inside of Meditech, but we did it through the Imprivata SSO profile.
Okay, great. Next question. Would you deploy just to physicians, or do you also extend to nurses and other clinical staff?
We felt that all clinicians needed to have this solution, as the logging in affects everybody, and there are more efficiencies. We felt that if we just provided it to physicians, we would have had to do different things, so that the physicians would have to log into only certain machines, and so we wanted to give everybody this tool.
And so thanks, Diane. This is Lee. We recommend, obviously, all the care team because they're all providing care for that patient. There are some folks that start with physicians. However, our recommendation is typically to go to the larger care team because they are, again, all trying to gain that same efficiency, provide care for the patients.
Okay, so we actually received a follow-up to the question about the Meditech logins, and so this is a follow-up. So do you actually go to Meditech first? Do you click on Meditech first?
No, in the patient rooms, in the kiosk type environment, when they tap their badge, it logs them into the system and logs them into Meditech. They do not have to tap the Meditech icon at all.
Great. Okay, next question. Where is the roaming aspect configured?
And you want me to take that, or you want to take that?
That'd be great. You can take it.
Sure. So the roaming aspect of the Meditech published application, we worked with Diane's parent company, Capella Health, and the Citrix team. So the roaming attributes are configured in 3 specific places. Inside of the Citrix farm, there's a place called Storefront Server that manages how we configure that. Then the Citrix receiver that's on the client endpoint plays a role in that, so we have it configured a specific way. And then in the Imprivata OneSign solution, we basically tie those 2 pieces together to say for those users, when they tap their badge, we want to automatically start this named published application, Meditech_live. And if it's already connected, just reconnect it. If it's not, then start it the first time. So it's a combination of Citrix server-side storefront settings, receiver, and then the one-sign integration and configuration.
And actually, that reminds me, as far as that 10 seconds goes that you were asking about, that's just the first time they log in. Because of the roaming, the next patient room that they go to, it logs them in, and it's pretty much instantaneous.
Okay. Next question. How long do you allow people to be inactive before having to re-authenticate?
There's inactivity of about 15 minutes, 5 minutes in patient rooms, and then they just tap their badge and it takes them right back to where they were.
Okay. Is there a limit to the number of applications that can set up with SSO?
This is Lee, and I'll take that one.
Okay.
Go ahead, Diane.
I said, to my knowledge, there's not.
and she's right. There's no limit. Diane mentioned she has 49. The highest that we've seen is 186 in a production environment. But there is no limit to the number of applications that can be profiled or SSO enabled.
Do you use any type of voice dictation for the providers? If so, is this integrated with SSO?
We haven't integrated with voice here as of yet at Willamette.
And so this is Lee. For probably half of our customers, they are using some sort of dictation device. And when we bring virtualization, whether it be Citrix or VMware into play, we have to be careful of certain things. But with Dragon Medical One specifically, as well as we deal with Philips and a couple others that we've run into, it's about making sure we get the USB device redirection to start when they reconnect to either the published application or desktop. But I would say about 50% of our customers are using dictation, and they're using it through roaming as well.
Earlier you mentioned 49 applications configured with single sign-on. With the use of Citrix for the roaming, out of the 49 applications, how many are installed locally versus installed on the Citrix desktops?
Meditech is the only one we have installed in the Citrix environment. All the rest of them are installed locally or still maybe through the wide area network, but they are all accessed off of Citrix or out of Citrix.
Okay. I am not seeing any hands raised or more questions coming in at the moment, but we'll just give it a couple of minutes in case someone is typing. I want to make sure that we do get to all the questions. If for some reason today you were unable to ask a question or you think of a question later, you can always email education@museweb.org and I can pass along your questions to our presenters today. Or Lee, I think you had a slide there with your contact information there we go. So if you did want to follow up and ask any other questions again for some reason, if you could not ask your question today, there is the Ford Advantage contact information, and I know they would be happy to answer any questions you have about their solutions that you saw here today. So again, I don't see any questions. Oh, there we go. Got another one. How easy is it to profile an application? And I can't see the rest of the question, but how easy is it to profile an application? Can we do it?
So Diane, you want me to take that?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So it is fairly straightforward to profile an application for SSO. Web-based applications are obviously the most easy to do, or the easiest to do. We will educate our customers usually as we're going through that process, and I would say that Aaron on Diane's team would be able to profile probably 80% of the applications, but part of Ford Advantage's commitment to the customer is that we work with our customers to do that. Even on technical support, if somebody calls in and they have a new application in their environment, we'll schedule time to work with you to SSO enable that. But again, it's pretty straightforward. We have customers that are doing it themselves and probably have more applications than we are even aware of profiled.
Okay, thank you. Again, it always happens when I say we're at the end of the webinar that we get some more questions in. But I don't see any in the question box right now, and I don't see any hands raised. So again, here is the contact information if you do have any follow-up questions. Now, we have recorded the session today, and we'll be sending a follow-up to everyone once we complete the webinar, and we look forward to your feedback from the evaluation. And we'll give it just one more second. Any other questions? Okay, I just want to thank everyone for attending today, and I want to thank Forward Advantage, and I want to thank Willamette Valley Medical Center as well, Diane Farrow. And I'll turn it back to you at Forward Advantage if you wanted to kind of close things out for us today.
So we'd just like to thank everybody for attending today, and we appreciate your input to us. And again, whatever else you need from us, please feel free to contact us. We look forward to working with everybody, and I think Oscar was going to finish us out.
Yep, no, I was going to say the same thing, Lee. I appreciate everybody's time. Please feel free to give us all a call. We'll be happy to answer any questions on any of our solutions. So please give us a buzz. Thank you.
All right, everyone, thanks so much. This will conclude our Muse Virtual Product Showcase. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.